Nursery Mommas, Pastor Cynthia here. We're so excited to be with you today. We're changing it up a little bit with our videos. We are going to have some question and answer time, and I've invited my daughter, Pastor Victoria, to be with us. She's my oldest of 5, and she's going to introduce herself a little bit later. But we're really excited to answer some of your questions that we post on Instagram and that were emailed to me. Some of them are mother-daughter relationship questions. Some of them are about being a new mom. So we're excited to jump into those. Before we do, I really wanted to set the tone for our time together and share with you that we are not experts.
No.
We are not perfect. We are still evolving. We are still changing. We are still learning about this relationship as she gets older and as I get older. So God's grace is here, and we aren't perfect. So the verse that I wanted to share with you is James 1-5 in the Passion Translation. It says, "And if anyone longs to be wise, ask God for wisdom, and he will give it. He won't see your lack of wisdom as an opportunity to scold you over your failures, but he will overwhelm your failures with his grace."
Amen.
And let me tell you, moms, as a mom of 5, he has overwhelmed many of my failures still daily with his grace, and he's there for you in that. So, Tori, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and to be sitting next to my mom, who is just absolutely incredible and be a part of these videos. I'm sure that these videos have been such a blessing to you in whatever season of life you're in. My name is Victoria. For those of you who don't know me, I'm 27 years old. I'm married, and I have a 1-year-old. She's just over 1. Her name is River Grace, and she has just started to walk. She's getting so big, so fast. And I also work for my mom. I'm on staff with my mom here at the Bridge. And so there's a lot of dynamics to our relationship, mother-daughter, employer-employee, new mom, seasoned mom. And so we are hoping to just take on all of those dynamics through these questions and help provide some insight into wherever you are.
Yeah.
Question number 1 for you. I've read that mother-daughter relationships are some of the most difficult and complicated. How has it been for you two?
Yes, it is complicated.
Just diving right in.
We're diving right in. It has been difficult at times. We are not perfect at it. We're very different. We are opposites. I think that the thing that stands out to me the most is that I don't, as a mom, this is my perspective, I don't go into confrontations or issues that we have together like I know everything. I know that she is still evolving where she is. I am still on my journey of growing with Jesus and learning and letting her have her space to do that, not coming at her that I know better. I try to come humbly with an open hand. I also wait. If we've had a conflict, I wait a day or so, and I go to my husband, who knows me really well. Am I being too sensitive? Is this me? I try to get perspective on when we have a conflict. That is it something that I need to address? Is it something I need to go to Jesus with? And when I do, I think I try to go in asking questions and hearing her perspective, knowing that she's a completely different person than me, and we're going to see things different. And so that's really helped. Already kind of working it out with Jesus before we come together.
That's good. I think sometimes the thought is, if it is hard or takes work, that it's not worth doing, or that means that it's bad. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with a mother-daughter or an adult child and their parents' relationship requiring some work and communication. And I think that's been really huge for us. It's just lots of open communication, lots of grace, lots of forgiveness. I think remembering, too, that as individuals, you're always working on yourself. You're always in a process. And so being patient with your mom or your parents' process, knowing that they're still becoming, just like you are. And so being gracious with that process and knowing that things can get better as you continue to work on yourself and they work on themselves, and just keep communication really open.
Yeah, that's good. All right. So here's question number 2. What are some tips for implementing solo playtime with your baby or toddler? So you have a baby, and River does this every day. I've watched it. So why don't you share how you've implemented that in your home?
Yeah, so solo playtime has been a part of River's daily schedule for a long time, and it's been really awesome for her and for us. She loves her independent playtime. She plays with her toys in her crib or pack and play, and now we're starting to integrate room time, which is closing the door and giving her access to her room and her toys and letting her play by herself. I would say the keys are consistency. Try doing it daily, the same time of day every day, and start with maybe 10 minutes and then build up that time with like 5-minute increments. I would start by doing it in a confined space like a pack and play or a crib before you do a room. It's important that a baby knows their boundaries and that they understand what this time is for, that this isn't nap time, but it's playtime. Play some worship music, play some VeggieTales music to keep it fun, keep the lights on so that they don't fall asleep. And then if you find that it's difficult and your baby is really resisting it or they're crying, it might be nice to add an incentive afterwards. So maybe after solo playtime every day, you do a snack time where you hang out with your baby, you give them their snack, and they get to see this as a reward for playing by themselves.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it is worth it. Let me tell you, I did room time for all 5 of my kids. It was how I took showers when they were babies, when they were in their playtime. But as they got older and I had multiple children, obviously, I was able to put one in playtime while maybe I read and spent time with one alone. And so it was really nice for them to learn to play independently. Obviously, some of them loved room time better than others. I mean, Victoria and Keaton loved to read and play by themselves. Maxwell, his whole purpose of room time was to see if he could climb out and to build things to climb over the gates that I had in his room, but he eventually had to succumb to that was mom's rule, and that's how it was. But you know, some kids are more challenging than others, are more spirited or passionate about life than others as far as like what they want, and you have to really break that down a little bit and say, I'm mom and this is the rule that we're doing every day, and they'll get used to it.
And it teaches them to not have free reign of the house and to have a sense of security without you. And so you might find that your baby or your toddler cries for a little bit, and that's just because they're not quite sure if you're going to come back or how long they're going to be there, but you're going to build that stability and that security by being consistent.
Yeah, and you can use the language. You're going to have playtime now. Mommy's in the kitchen. You know, even if you think they don't understand, you say the same thing every day. Mommy's going to take a shower. I'm going to be right back. And it really does help their security in knowing you're going to be right there.
And maybe during solo playtime, let them have access to toys that they don't throughout the rest of the day, so they know that it's special. They get to play with these toys during this time every day.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, question number 3. Do you think adult children still need things from their parents?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I hear a lot among my peers that they really want to get to a place where they don't need their parents, and I think it's that natural inclination towards independence, not wanting to rely too heavily emotionally or in other ways on your parents. But I don't think need is always bad, and I think there's a difference between dependence and utilizing your parent as a resource and as a support person in your life as you're navigating the many different seasons of life. So for me, as I've just become a mom, I have needed my mom and her resource and all of her experience because I'm doing this for the first time and I don't know what I'm doing all the time and I have a lot of questions and I may choose to do things differently. I may not agree with all of the input that she brings to the table, but I choose to not see it as a have to, but a get to. Like, I get to have my mom in my life and work on this relationship and have her speak into different parts of my life. And because God is the center of my life, I ask him to inform all of those parts too. And he brings clarity about what I'm meant to do with all of that. And so I would say if you have a parent in your life and you're not sure if it's okay to need them, you may need different things from them in different times. You know, maybe your parent, you don't feel like you can rely on them for your emotional needs, but they bring a certain strength to your relationship where you feel you're weak. And I think that's okay, and God did that on purpose.
Yeah, I think for a mom's perspective, I had to work through not being needed. And I think that that's super important because your whole life you are giving, you are sacrificing, you are there for your kids. And then all of a sudden you hit the season where they don't need you anymore, or so you think. And so the best question that someone had shared with me that I ask my adult children is, can I make a suggestion? That was a huge thing for me for my adult children because sometimes, honestly, Victoria was like in the middle of it and said, no, I don't want to hear Mom, you know? And then sometimes she would say, yeah, you know, and I would give it as a suggestion, not as this is going to work for you, this is how you have to do it, my opinion I know everything because I've done it this many times. I never threw that in their face, and it's just like, can I make a suggestion? Because sometimes I do know things that are going to make her life a little easier.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's been a key question for me. I come very open-handed, and when she says no, I don't get offended. It's just like she's not in the mind space to receive, so I don't really want to give it. So I think that's really helpful too for that relationship.
That's so good. I think as a child, position yourself to receive, be open, take or leave whatever you want, and then as a parent, don't require that your child do exactly what you say,
right?
But present it in a really like open and loving way and see what happens,
right? Because this is her journey. This isn't my journey. I did that already. So this is her time to figure herself out as a mom, as a woman, as a wife, and she needs to go through those things, good and bad, to develop who she is. And I need to take that back seat and let God work in her and do that and not take over. So.
And there have been times where I've needed to voice my needs. As you transition in different seasons of life, things change. And so there have been times where I said, Mom, I need you to be praying for me in this, or I need you to ask about this part of my life because this is a part of my life I need to be a little bit more accountable in, and I see this as a strength in you. And so be open to those needs and don't be so quick to squash them.
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay, so question number 4. How do you nurture a child's faith without forcing it? Really good.
Yeah, it's really good. I kind of hit on this on one of my previous videos of kind of how we did things in our home. Brian and I never forced our kids to read their Bibles. We tried our best to example it. They knew how important it was to us. They knew how important it was. It's how we ran our home. It was kind of who we were, and that because Jesus was such a big part of our own life, it overflowed to them. I think it's really important. Examples, everything. I remember walking home from elementary school and my mom was in her chair with her Bible open reading it. I never asked her about it. I never thought about it. But to this day, I remember that. I remember her reading her Bible. And so I think that's the best thing. And it wasn't to put on a show. I mean, this was definitely part of our life and who we were. And there was no apologizing for that. That's who we were, and that's what our family value is. There is one thing that we did not bend on, and that was going to church. We were talking about it earlier. It's kind of a kingdom value, and I didn't grow up with the consistency and the self-discipline to go every Sunday. And when we got married, my husband and I, he's third generation, Foursquare pastor, he said, our family goes to church. That's who we are. And it took me a while to adjust to it because I didn't have that in my life all the time. But it was the best thing because it just gave that discipline to me, that grounding of who I was as a woman of God and what I needed in my life, which was community. And I think that's something that we said, if those doors are open, our kids are there. And, we did encourage them to go to youth group and to be involved and to embrace their community. And I think that's what stayed with them in school and college and continually. I mean, what do you think? Because you saw it or...
Oh, I think that was really good what you said about a kingdom value. I think as Christians, kingdom values need to inform who we are, and then something can't become a family value that is not a personal value. So you can't expect your child to take on these values that you yourself have not lived or modeled. And so I saw that in my parents, that this was personal values that they allowed God to speak to and allowed themselves to be under his lordship, and then that trickled down onto us. And so I think if you're a parent and you're watching this, really cultivate those things as your own personal values and let those things be publicly seen by your kids so that they could see that this is a value and really, really important to you, and then encourage them to do it. I think keep it fun. For us kids growing up, it was fun to get our own Bibles with our name in it, or to listen to worship songs in the car and learn hand motions. And if something feels like a duty or a chore, of course they're not going to want to do it. But if we see joy and fun in something, we're super drawn to it. And so I really believe that faith needs to be a thing of joy. And so if it's not joyful for you, if it's not fun, if this isn't something that's putting a smile on your face, why would it put a smile on theirs? So model that life in Jesus is a life in joy, and allow kingdom values to be your personal values and then trickle into your family values.
That's good. And I want to make sure I say we weren't perfect. they also saw my struggles with God. And when someone left the church and didn't say goodbye, that was there for 10 years, and maybe it was hurtful or hard personally to go through. They saw me cry. They saw me they heard me in my room, praying out to God and like really seeking Him for healing and walking through that. It wasn't just all a bed of roses, I think that we were authentic with our relationship, ups and downs, and I think they saw how much we needed Jesus even in the downs. And I think I think the best thing to be for your kids is honest, to be authentic. And I think we would pray at family dinner, and at the dinner table and say, Mom and Dad are having a hard time, or Mom and Dad are arguing a lot right now, but we're okay. And we were honest, and we talked about things, and we involved our kids in it. Some people do it different.
Yeah.
That's just how we did it.
And I feel like you always redirected us to the Lord.
Yeah.
Like when I would go to my mom with something that was going on at school or something that I was wrestling with, she wasn't quick to solve all my problems for me. She would say, well, when's the last time you talked to God about it? And that'd always be so convicting, but it would instill in me that He's our source, that we go to Him for our wisdom and our direction, and that He has something to say about what I'm going through, not just you, where you could have given me a solution and figured it out for me, but you pushed me back to God, and that helped cultivate that personal relationship where I leaned on Him.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay.
All right.
So, question number 5. My niece experienced a pregnancy loss. How can I support her?
Well, first of all, I'm so sorry that happened. It's something that isn't talked about a lot, but happens a lot. And I can speak to that personally because I've experienced a miscarriage. And I know that my mom can speak to it as the support person in that situation too. I think the first thing that you can do is be praying for her. That this is an experience that is lived very uniquely to the person. There is not one size fits all when it comes to grief or losing a baby. It is so personal, so unique to the person. So pray that God would meet her in all of the ways that she needs Him to. I would say ask questions, kind of like what we've been talking about through this Q&A. Really offer yourself open-handed. How can I support you? What do you need right now? Do you need me to bring you a meal? Is there something that I can help with the other kids? How can I be there? Instead of assuming you know how to support or assuming you know the words to say, ask questions and try to not provide Band-Aid solutions, that God has a plan or it's all going to be okay or she's going to get her miracle baby one day. Those things aren't always helpful to hear when you're experiencing grief and loss. Those things might still be true, but not what you need to hear. So I would say just show up and love and support, ask questions, and be consistent, and don't be afraid to ask. I think sometimes the inclination is it's better that I just back off and don't say anything at all. And I know I experienced that in some of my relationships, and that was painful. I needed my people to show up for me, even if they didn't know how. Yeah. And so just be honest and open. I don't know how to be there for you right now, but I want to be there for you. What does that look like? And let her answer.
And this is a huge thing of growth for me and for my generation. And I want to speak to all the mamas out there that are older, because we didn't talk about these things. We didn't talk about the loss and the grief and feeling the feelings. Those were things we just kind of rolled up our sleeves and toughed it out and did. Yeah, powered through. And no one really dealt with those things that later on, ladies, they do come back to bite you. And I've done a lot of counseling with women through healing of things from when they were younger that they never dealt with. Yeah. And so I think for me in this, because it was something new, how to navigate it was new, was to be supportive and to let her grieve however she had to grieve. Yeah. I didn't
be patient.
Yeah, be patient. I didn't call you every day, text you every day, how are you okay? I let you come to me. And I think that I also gave myself room to grieve. That was my first grandbaby that we lost, and I think Brian and I took time to grieve that. Yeah. And I think that, and we felt like that's okay. Nobody had to see it. We prayed, and we would every night pray for her and her husband read. Yeah. But I think it was just trying our best to support however she needed it. Yeah. And some days I was curious, how are you doing today? Yeah. What can I do for you? And I think I did acknowledge the loss, when that year came around, the anniversary.
She sent me flowers, and it was super meaningful. I saw that in you, that you didn't distance yourself from the reality of the loss. It is easier to do that, to sort of just create distance. This isn't real. This isn't happening. but to embrace the loss as a reality of our life and our family, and that will always be the case, and this is a part of our story, and that carries with it good and bad.
Yeah.
But it matters, and it's worth taking that time to feel and process
And
through.
I want to say too, my husband Brian was really good about reaching out to Reed and having those conversations with him. You know, I think the flowers were probably his idea. He's very sensitive to the needs of our kids, and I think that he really reached out to Reed as a man and tried to talk to him because he was grieving too.
Yeah.
And I think we forget that.
Totally.
And so I think it's important to just, definitely just be there, be supportive, and to acknowledge that that person went through something. And
so good.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, last question. What would you tell the younger version of you as a mom if you could?
Yeah. I was really thinking about this and praying about it, kind of remembering back. And I think what I would do is be a lot kinder to myself. I think as women, as moms, I think we're very critical of ourselves in lots of areas.
Totally.
I think we lay our head on our pillow at night and say, I shouldn't have said this, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have yelled. Maybe I slapped that little hand a little too hard, whatever it is that you have that guilt and that conviction of. But to take that to the Lord, let Him teach you through it. And I think to know that you're not perfect and to give yourself grace that His mercies are new every morning and you're going to wake up and start over with your children again. And I think that has helped me. And I think the biggest area that I would have been kinder to myself was to embrace my body changes of having a baby and kind of entering into womanhood and how my body changed. Nobody really talked about those things, and I had a really hard time with that. My body, I had 5 children. It's a lot, and
Insane.
Some women can bounce right back. I didn't have those genetics. So I had to work really hard at it, and I think I was very just obsessed a lot of the time with getting back to my 18, 19-year-old body, which, by the way, ladies, you'll never have back because you have had a human. And, your body, yes, you may get better.
It's a worthy trade.
But it's a worthy trade. And to embrace those stretch marks as your badges of honor, and that God used your body to bring life. And I think I would have had more grace and mercy on myself. And, my husband never put pressure on me. He always thought I was beautiful. I think he loved me pregnant all the time.
Hence the 5 children.
Yeah. And, he never even thought like that, but it was me. And it was my mindset and how I looked at myself. It's how I compared to other women who had children and how they bounced
robs
back.
Your joy.
Totally robs
of
your
the
joy.
journey.
And it fixates. You fixate on everything, what you eat, what you think. Right. And I think that now I live such a balanced life, a healthy life in all areas, that fitness is just a part of my life. How I eat is a part of my life. I have balance in those areas of maturity and maturity in those areas that I didn't have then. And I think I would have just been kinder and loved myself more. In every area.
And I think that's something that God wants for all of us, whether you're a mom or not, to be open to self-compassion and self-kindness. I think when you live in freedom, your kids see that, the people in your life see that, and they're more inclined to live in freedom too. So I think that that's a great question to end on, and something that we hope you feel really encouraged by today, that to be kind to yourself, to not waste any time under any guilt or shame or expectations that are not from God, but to live in full freedom and liberation, knowing that you are enough. You are good enough, you are loved, you are seen, you are fully accepted by God. And so to live in that and walk in that freedom today.
Yeah, and enjoy each season of your life, because it just gets better and better, ladies.
It really does.
And we'll see you next week. Love you.